What does a good protocol for synergy and growth and awareness and more sustainable well-being look like? The first thing is gathering data. And an easy place to start, because it's where the brain goes to anyway, are what's the problems? What are the objections, criticisms, and problems with what is currently happening? Now, this will usually lead to a bunch of new data. In the case with concept synergy, what are Jach's problems? I understand he's kind of bored and not very interested in engaging with the business and wanting to step back. What are the current team's problems as individuals and as a team as a whole? What are the past team's problems with how they were treated, with what's going on in their relationship with concept synergy today? What are the client's problems, both with the Lazaris material, with engaging with concept synergy, or with understanding the patterns of shame and abuse between the power structure of Jach, Michael, and Penny, and then Allison, sanctioned by Lazaris, and the impact of all of that behavior on the team, and then the impact that has on everyone else, to have that somehow mingled with their relationship with Lazaris through association. Lazaris's choice to associate with Jach and Penny and Michael and concept synergy, and to allow what is happening there. So gathering data about the problems is a good place to start, because when you measure how much energy is being invested and spent in the various relationships with Lazaris, with the community, with staff, with between concept synergy and itself and others, there's a certain amount of time, money, and natural resources being used to facilitate that relationship. And it's creating a certain amount of sustainable well-being, a certain amount of temporary well-being, a certain amount of temporary suffering, and a certain amount of chronic suffering. And that marks the intelligence quotient of the relationship. A highly intelligent relationship uses very little energy to create high volumes of sustainable well-being. A very low intelligent relationship consumes vast amounts of energy and very little sustainable well-being. And so you now have a picture of where the different relationships are on the intelligence continuum. The next thing to measure and gather data about is desires. This is the problem. Why is it a problem? Well, I desire this, and this is what's happening. I desire this, but this is what's happening. Well, Lazaris refers to that as pain. So the problem exists in the gap between stated desire and felt experience. And so what are the desires? What are the desires for the team? What is past and present? What are the desires for Jach? What are the desires of all the different clients, past and present? Does Lazaris have any desires, around any of this? So this is the data gathering about the desires. And another way of putting this is the win. What does a win look like for each of the people involved, and why would that be a win? And I would suggest that you will have a very low, unconscious, and incompetent synergy without this information. So the first step in synergy is to gather this data. Now, my personal desires are to see the material being distributed more competently, technologically, and ethically than, why not, any material. If Lazaris wants to hold to the claim of being the highest resonance to ever touch the planet, and hold to the claim of creating his own reality, and hold to his choice to picking Jach and Concept Synergy as a monopoly distributor, why not pick excellence, particularly when you produce material about it? Why not have the best media distribution protocol? You know, an app that is better than Audible rather than 10 times worse in multiple metrics, you know. Why not? I want it. I'd like to see a correlation between resonance technology that works, between tapes on excellence and excellence. I'd like the Lazaris material to be presented on the best media presentation apps in the world, and I'd like them to empower the client base, Lazaris's friends, to engage with the material powerfully in a variety of ways. Why not a subliminal feature? I want to listen to this tape subliminally, where the app will make sure it's just above audio and mix in some relaxing music, etc. And now you've got a great sleep tool. I want to read my notes from 10 years ago without looking up boxes. Let's take a photograph and correlate them with this. I want nuanced chapters. I'd like indexing. I'd like translations into Chinese, so that I don't have to explain to my Chinese friends why the highest resonance in the planet doesn't think Chinese is important to communicate in. So let's have some competence, some excellence in the material and in the publishing of the material. Let's have map making in the apps themselves, rather than dragging behind and barely getting around to CDs before the world moves on to something else, with all the excuses of the resonance of tapes and we won't be doing it, and we just actually enter the market late. How about a little excellence, a little competence for the client? How about surveys, where after every interaction with Concept Synergy, you rate them on courtesy, you rate them on competency, you rate them on excellence and value and innovation? How about it? Why not? Let's integrate that into the app to create a field in which someone working at Concept Synergy is going to develop excellence through a feedback loop, which is one of the best techniques available. Why not? And let's have a trend towards increased customer satisfaction that is at the top of the marketplace, not based on grandiose associations and ass-licking, but actually on saying, you know what? They do know how to treat you better than Safeway at Concept Synergy. And they know how to train the Concept Synergy staff to be so good at what they do that anyone would want to hire them. And they know how to do what they're doing so well that they're constantly growing financially and in impact, etc., around the world. And they pay their staff well. They give them maternity leave. They give you flex time. You can work from nature and answer calls in your phone, etc. Let's create a template of what does a great staff environment look like, architecturally, physically, edibly, etc. They're doing it at Google. Why does the map-making publisher have to lag behind? I'd like a little integrity in that domain. I'd like to hear about past employees feeling reconciled, since they're incredibly hostile and shame-based and dissatisfied because of the way they have been treated. So Jach and the entire concept synergy field chose to ask for non-disclosure agreements rather than to clean up their act to the point where they wouldn't be necessary. Chose not to give benefits, chose not to pay above average or even average for the amount of dedication and time and tenure, etc. Let's have that be cleaned up to where the average person could look at that interaction and say, those people were treated well, rather than lied to and thrown under the bus to protect a coward of a channel who wants to make all the money from doing this and not work as hard. You see, Jach isn't up all night with understaffed packing crystals. He's sleeping in a 5-star bed of a hotel and sleeping during the event. It doesn't seem right. It seems normal, self-centered, and a little petty. How about creating a reality where it actually, that if the average person was to look on 24/7 video camera of what's actually going on, they'd say, you know what? Lazaris must be onto something, because the channel spends tons of time with him for decades and knows what he's doing, knows how to take care of his staff, works as hard as the next person when work needs to be done, as opposed to, I don't believe in struggle for myself, I believe in dumping it on my underpaid staff. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see some version of competency and ethics that would lead naturally to bowing down to some respect. And I'd like the highest resonance to ever touch the planet to be associated with that and take a little responsibility. I mean, is Lazaris really so helpless that he couldn't stop channeling through Jach and start channeling through someone else who wanted to deal with these things? Is Lazaris so helpless that he can't suggest a conversation like this themselves? Is Lazaris so helpless and unresponsive to this probability field? The probability field of a majority of former Concept Synergy staff members feeling just discombobulated at best, traumatized at worst, abandoned by their good friend Lazaris. Lazaris can't figure that out better than this. There are human beings who are doing better than that, who are not creating universes and other time. And I'd like to see more responsibility from Lazaris than the average ethical leader, not less, and not avoiding the topic. You know, Lazaris, listen to the whispers before they become shouts. Hello. Let's deal with some of this. Let's bring it up preemptively rather than wait till it chases, you know, Jach Pursel with a documentary. Deal with it up front. Let's talk about it. So, you know, you chose Jach. You're letting him stew here in all his martyrhood and confusion and incompetence. But you chose Jach. You didn't have to. You could have chosen anyone. Thousands, millions would have said yes. Make 100 grand falling asleep for a day. You got it. And many of those millions could and would have been data-oriented. Jach was an insurance salesperson. His whole business would not have existed without gathering data. Now, what the insurance industry gathers data on is the risk factor, because that's what matters in a capitalist cult. the risk factor. Why? So we can make more money. That's why they would hire Jach to sell insurance, because they've done the data to figure out, here's a profitable matrix of, we'll take 10 billion in, and then we'll pay 5 billion out in accidents, and then we'll pay all our salesmen, including Jach, and then we'll give the rest to our shareholders. You couldn't do that without gathering data. Well, when you have a less profitable relationship with your former staff, where they've put money in and gotten shame out of the deal, where they've put time in and gotten very little in return, it's an unsustainable thing, so the thing collapses. But that doesn't matter, because it's just chauvinism. It's just human relationships. Why should we care about our clients' feelings? That's feminine. Why should we care about our relationships? That's feminine. Why should we give a damn about the shame being suffered by past staff members? Let's focus on moving forward, making more money, saving money, ignoring things, the good old chauvinistic way. Why should we listen to our own tapes on that? Let's leave that for other people to listen, fail at, feel bad about, and pretend that we're doing it perfectly. That's denying the shadow. But why should we listen to the shadow tape? Oh, poor us. A client is asking, why should we listen to the self-pity tape when our clients can feel self-pity about our incompetent behavior? You see, I'd like to see this out in the open, as opposed to buried in the shame passed on to staff and clients, so that Jach doesn't have to deal with this shit. I'd like to see Lazaris dealing with this out in the open, rather than enabling Jach Pursel to be an endless martyr, misunderstood, invisible, unappreciated, in denial, and not have to deal with his shit because you're enabling it, Lazaris, through association. You know, you tell any group of people who believes you enough to buy anything that we're the best resonance in the history of humanity, and we're ganging up with this guy. He's our one channel for all time. And that guy has shit and blind spots and martyrhood and cruelty and incompetence over here, like everyone else. But you don't say shit about it? And then you think that the average person, when this person dominates and bullies his staff, is not going to have some doubt about whether or not maybe Lazaris sees something we don't see. After all, he does create universes. Of course they do. Which sets Jach up to be blind more than the average person. Of course it does. Why do you think Trump is blind more than the average person? Because he bullies himself into positions of power and then surrounds himself with sycophants who he can afford and who absolutely know what the rule is. The rule of every single sycophant around Trump, paid or unpaid, is do not question anything about this person's incompetence, stupidity, cruelty, hypocrisy, lies. Don't touch it, or you will be punished, much like the Orlando gang. I don't think anyone who's spent time for 10 or 20 years in the forum doesn't understand the rules. Do not question anything about Lazaris. Do not question anything about concept synergy, or you will be mysteriously terminated. Donald Trump, concept synergy. What's the difference? The difference is supposedly 45 years of association with Lazaris. Is that good enough? Is that sane? It's completely bonkers. And the the client has to wrestle with that level of cruelty and stupidity inside and out. They have to look up at the creator of universes and say, really, is this the best people he can channel with? The best people he can run his business with? This is the best he can do for his friends? This is it? This is the new age? It's sickening. It's a fucking outrage. But where's the space for that energy in a cult that supposedly honors its shadow, but will not honor this voice? Where's the place where this part of the shadow is honored? And this energy is utilized to catalyze something better. Where's the science, the discipline, the protocol, the data, the impact readings to show how this becomes something more beautiful through intelligent protocol of communication and interaction, as opposed to building up into endless layers of depression, bitterness, doubt, induced by the silence and shame of the concept synergy communication protocol. So that's what I want. I want this dealt with out in the open, using the best technology and science available, to where the average person could look at this and say, yeah, that's above average. They're not complete nutcases who will spout everything under the sun, from Lemuria to this, to the ancient this, and all this, and treat their staff like shit, treat their customers like shit, have no integrity with their own material, run away like typical cowards who blame other people. Of course, Donald Trump had nothing to do with the riots. Of course not. He's only the top of the power structure. Jach Pursel has nothing to do with ignoring my emails, with ignoring Barbara Brennan's bevy of intelligent emails, with underpaying his staff. Nothing to do with it. He's a pure martyr of the whole thing. Poor Jach. All he has to do is go to sleep, and then people blame him when he wakes up with millions of dollars. Poor Jach. Nothing to do with him. People misunderstood him. It's hard to do since he doesn't talk about anything. He silences it with NDAs. So this is what I want to have sorted out. I'd like someone competent and successful in human relationship psychology communication to look at this interaction and say, yeah, 20 years of involving with Lazaris led to something. Not 20 years of involving with Lazaris led Dane to complete meltdown and dysfunction, and concept synergy to fear, panic, and regression, and Jach Pursel to martyrhood, and Lazaris standing by as if, oh well, I'm just creating and allowing my reality, enjoying all my friends' suffering. I'd like them to see actually some competence, above average, because it is a fucking joke and an insult to make this the highest priority. This is the relationship with the divine. That's all we've got here. There is no separation between God, Goddess, all that is, and our planet, and our company, and our interactions, and our clients, and our team. We're it. So if this is the highest priority, could we at least have some competence in here? A little? Could we reference best protocols? So this is all in the category of gathering my data, of what I want, what I desire. Which brings to the next thing, the pain. How big is the gap? How big is the gap between concept synergy and an Orlando gang that instills fear, going around controlling other people? How big is that gap for each person involved? Is it too much trouble to send out a survey to 10,000? Are there 10,000 people left who want anything to do with concept synergy? That'd be an accomplishment after all of this hypocrisy and stupidity, to have still 10,000 would actively hang on. Well, it's never been cheaper to send out communication in the history of humanity. Never. It's never been cheaper or easier to make money selling media. You know that 400 years ago, printing Grail with ink on big books, they managed to do that and make money? You know, paint on the Grail, one page at a time, two people pressing the printing press down, carting it along horse and cart, every book worth hundreds of dollars. And now, bing, download, 10 cents of electricity tops. It's never been easier to make money selling the Lazaris material in the history of humanity. It's never been cheaper to communicate with your staff and people. Is it really too expensive? So there's a gap there. There's pain. There's anger in that gap. How's it for you? How's it for you? How's it for you? What are the recurring themes? Could we do a Venn diagram in an app that actually was map making to triangulate the concerns simultaneously? Could we have an open sourced company where every client in the company, every past team member, every current team member, Jach, and why not Lazaris, weighs in on concerns, pains, desires, etc., sees where the overlap is, and then gets to work? Is that too expensive for concept synergy? So we need to measure that, and that's gathering data. And the next area to gather data is possible solutions. You don't get to call yourself synergy if your main protocol is to block out. Meaning, I would say that concept synergy is above average in its effectiveness of stonewalling communication. Meaning, this level of frustration that you hear in my voice doesn't come out of nowhere. I don't exhibit this with many people in many relationships. So why here? Because concept synergy is more masterful than most at stonewalling, lying, putting their head in the sand, and willfully shutting down. They're the only media company I know who can't safely open an MP3 file. Try sending them an MP3 file with some good ideas. Oh, they can't manage it. It might infect their computers. They're only a publishing information company. They don't even have a burner phone to listen to their clients in case all of the best virus software in the world, which does not rank MP3s as very high. Oh, they could, who knows? The whole system could go down. The whole company could fold like a deck of cards because one client sent them an MP3. We can't have that. Let's just risk complete blackout of intelligent ideas, because whoever needed a good idea when we're running our country and our company into the ground so effectively? So, solutions. What about a 10x Lazaris app? Now, I show one of the apps that I designed, and I'm working with an app developer right now on this general theme for my business, landscaping. Why not a landscape app that's 10 times better than anything close to what I can find? Well, why not? Let's get moving on it. So, can a company involved with map making do the same for itself? Or is that just for the customers to worry about? Why don't you make how to make a map on how to enjoy dealing with a very disagreeable company that doesn't want to get its shit together. And once you've figured out how to make that map, teach it to all our other clients, because we're not going to get our shit together because we're sanctioned in a monopoly relationship with Lazaris, who passively stands by our incompetence. So how about solutions, apps, ideas? From who? The clients, the staff, the former staff. Could we get 1,000 ideas in there? Is there anyone who cares enough to go through those ideas and upvote them? Could we have all ideas are public, open sourced, and anyone who agrees with an idea, just upvote, oh, I like that one, upvote. Okay, and what do these ideas cost? This one costs $300,000 to implement. But there are 300 people who would each value this happening worth $1,000. They'll crowdfund it, or they'll buy more product. You know, I find it stunning that on the one hand, we have Concept Synergy can't pay their staff retirement. Oh no. On the other hand, they can't respond to a request to spend $2,000. On their own website, they say they'll put a bunch of things onto a phone, you just send it in. I said, put $2,000 worth on this phone, I'll send it in. They said, oh, we're so incompetent we couldn't even take that page down. We're not going to honor the fact that we didn't do that and do it this one last time. No. We don't want your $2,000. We're content to underpay our staff. So the 1 hour it might take a competent person to transfer $2,000 of stuff that's free for us, we could send that out to a staff bonus. We could put that towards a more competent app, but we don't care about our staff, our clients, and what's good for you. We don't care about the fact that you're getting Wi-Fi sickness because we won't create an effective downloadable version. We don't care about that. We don't want to gather data about who's concerned with the impact on their health. I do all of my media consumption with Audible, with downloaded material, except Lazaris. Who cares? Does anyone else care? I don't know if it's 10 people, 100 people, or 1,000 people would like the option of listening to Lazaris when they're in the mountains without a cell reception or not having Wi-Fi signal in their hands. I think it'd be a good idea. But that would only mean caring for the customer. So what are the solutions and who votes for them? Could we have a voting system as good as Quora or any of the other plebeian consensus technologies? Could we be better than that as magicians and map makers to actually upvote and be conscious of it and see, ooh, this is the top idea of every single or 90% of Lazaris clients would like this to happen. It only costs $10,000. We'll chip in if Jach is too stingy to contribute any of his sleep gains, selling his Lazaris' friends' material. We'll chip in, you know, if Lazaris and Jach can't manage that. How about that? Well, we can't have that. That would be synergy. That would be data gathering. That would be responsibility. We can't have it. We're Concept Synergy. We're above all that. We're a gang. Get it. Deal with it. We like tormenting people, like our parents tormented us, like we haven't dealt with in our own childhood as we pass the shame on. Why not? And why say it's easier to succeed than to fail if no one at Concept Synergy can do this after 45 years? Why not? Ask Lazaris. Hey, Lazaris, you said this was easier to succeed than to fail. Are you really saying we're that sadistic and fucked up? And none of us want to succeed and we all want to... Out with it, Lazaris. Let's have some feedback, a relationship, not a monologue. So this is solutions. and upvoting. That's part of synergy, upvoting. Then you have resources. Okay, why not start with the top 3 ideas that 90% of people would all say that would be an improvement and it costs very little time and energy. That's intelligent improvement. It takes very little time, energy, and money to do it. Let's do it. Okay, what are the resources? Jach doesn't want to participate? Fine. Are there 1,000 Lazaris friends that have any resources, any talents, any connections, any networks? What are the resources and ideas? Technology, passions, votes, competency, money, time. I'll donate 3 hours to make this happen. Just show me what to do. Okay, I have competency to show you what to do. Could we synergize? And then could we measure the results? And do any of the tapes help improve that results for anyone there? And if not, can Lazaris address the fact that John Gottman or someone else might have better material? And why is that? And so let's have some movement here. So looking for possible synergy is the next step. So you gather all that data. Problems, desires, pains, solutions, and resources. You gather it from everyone. You don't have a synergy with one person. A synergy with as many people who want to synergize. No downside to getting an idea that doesn't get upvoted and still people having the choice to be seen. So look at possible synergy. And then the final thing is, could we expect leadership based on service and effectiveness? Could we measure the competency of Jach Pursel, of Concept Synergy staff, measure the competency of other leaders and companies, and say that what we want, what everyone who is healthy wants, is for people who love to be leaders, and that leaders are people who have better intelligence ratios, meaning they produce more sustainable well-being with less energy. That's what makes them a leader. If they burn out, get tired, fine. Let's get rid of the chauvinism that thinks leaders are better than followers. If you are intelligent and you understand that someone can lead better than you can, follow them. There's no shame in that. There's just chauvinistic delusion that pretends leaders are less important than followers, or followers are less important than leaders. It's not true. Everyone benefits when the most competent people committed to outcomes are influencing others and guiding the field. Everyone suffers when the least competent people are elevated and everyone does what they says, however incompetently. So could we measure leadership effectiveness? If I want to measure leadership effectiveness, if I want the right to design and install my client's landscape, I've got to show that I can get it done on time and early 90% of the time, that the budget is exactly what's agreed. I've got to show that past clients like their garden more than they thought they would. I've got to show them that I can show up on time and do what I say and keep the crew safe. I've got to measure, display that data, or they don't want to spend $100,000 doing a landscape. But does Concept Synergy have to display any data? Well, they don't have to, but a competent leader, and this is where Lazaris enables through monopoly association. I've heard so many Lazaris friends doubting themselves after being treated poorly by Concept Synergy. Because to doubt Concept Synergy is rationally to have skepticism about Lazaris's competency. See, Lazaris says he has no time. So he already knows the future. It's all happening right now. He knows every unconscious mind on the planet, and he creates universes in his spare time. So maybe there's something I'm missing. It seems like Concept Synergy is treating me worse than Safeway. It seems like the Audible app is 3 times to 10 times better, depending on what you measure, than the Concept Synergy app. It seems like concept synergy is late to adopt CDs. We have to keep a tape player just for concept synergy to live in its delusions that tapes are around forever. It seems like that, but who am I to say? Lazaris chose Jach and does again today. Lazaris is at choice. He's doing it again and again and again. He's not saying anything about it. Why? Must be something wrong with me. Why doubt yourself? Maybe concept synergy cannot perform at the level of Safeway. Maybe the Lazaris material is not correlated with good customer satisfaction. I mean, it seems pretty obvious it isn't. Is there anyone who becomes more interested in serving their clients after 10 years of Lazaris? There's lots of arrogant people who think they're better than the consensus. Arrogance is enabled by the Lazaris material, but what about service? What's the data on that? Is that okay? Should we just all listen to the Lazaris material that says all problems come from feeling better than and less than other people? And then you look at the Lazaris community, and half the time they're feeling shame-based and inadequacy because they're not doing all the techniques properly, so they're feeling less than. Oh, I'm such a fuck up and this and that because I didn't do steps 5 perfectly on the 27th layer of cassette number 327 on the 6 stages of, I'm not there, oh my goodness, I feel so inadequate. And on the other hand, I'm the bringer of universes. I listen to the best channel in the world. Those poor plebeians, they don't even know how much they could be abused. If only they could be clients of concept synergy. Oh my goodness. So all problems in the whole world come down to self-pity and self-importance. Oh my goodness, and look at all the self-pity and all the self-importance in the same people associated with the relationship. And now that you mention it, look at that Dane guy. Isn't he full of righteous self-importance and, suffering about everything? He worked with Lazaris too. Would a non-Lazaris friend talk like this about all these things that nobody else is even paying any attention to? Does concept synergy synergize? A normal person isn't bothered by this. So, is there any data on that? Do Lazaris friends have more self-pity and more self-importance than the average 1,000 people? About what subjects? And what is Lazaris' engagement with that? So this is just data. And what you measure matters, grows, is relevant. It ties in with a scientific paradigm. And if you invite in the shadow, if you honor and listen to the whispers before they become shouts, all of this could have been worked with 10 years ago with app technology. It could be worked on today so that it isn't seething and overflowing with the pus of frustration, etc., 10 years from now. So that's response in terms of looking for the possible synergies of technologies, resources, and measuring all of these things, having leadership, and then measuring again. When it's so cheap and free, why not have an app that shows all the relevant metrics of well-being, hierarchy of human needs, preferences, who has resources they want to share bountifully in some way with the community, mentally, emotional, physical, financial, jobs, who has resources, who wants to gather data, to look at what happens with those attempts at synergies. Because it's not about the people ultimately, it's about the protocol. If you have a good protocol, and I would suggest this is a better one than frustrating, irritating, and silencing your employees and your clients, and hovering around, and it's the most inefficient thing imaginable to refuse to listen to people who want to talk to you directly, and then set up a spy network to try and find out through gossip what you would not listen to firsthand. That's got to be the most dysfunctional communication thing imaginable, because you spend more energy than just to listen directly. This is easy. Listen to any time. This is easy. But no, we're going to shut this down. We're not going to pay any attention to it. We're going to ban this. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't listen the easy way. But so-and-so heard in the penny gossip network, right? So-and-so heard that this happened and that happened, and oh my goodness, and let's 20 of us all discuss what none of us witnessed. And let's not create an app or a survey so that we could hear it firsthand. No, let's attack people for telling us directly, and then attack them for going behind our back. It's wonderful. You can complain about the problems you generate. A negative synergy. A negative synergy. Concept synergy is a synergy. It's just that many of the synergies created are more potent in their destruction. When you have an incompetent shaming employment protocol mingled with the belief that you're linked to your spirituality, it's crazy making. It's a negative synergy. If you just had Lazaris and didn't have concept synergy, then it would not produce the full damage. You need Lazaris and the abuse protocols of concept synergy to really fuck you up. You need something good there where people believe in it. And then you need something bad so that can be rammed up their ass while they're putting up with, because they think something's good there. You need something good and something bad. The synergy is more potent. You need a monopoly and this and this and this, and then you can really fuck with 15-year-olds who are contemplating suicide because Lazaris is telling them they create their own reality. Your parents are telling them you create your own reality, and you're stuck in trauma and pain. It's a negative synergy. But what about positive ones? Could we look at all the harm caused by the negative synergies, measure them, invite them in? Thank you very much for sharing your story. What can we learn from you? How can we love you? What can we do next? So this is the protocol, the best one I know of from a few hundred books in trauma and relationships and psychology, mingled with the better aspects of what Lazaris has had to say and interacting with competent human beings. This works. And you can do it and view the working publicly on a public app that, you know, the app that can do all this, we're talking less than 100,000. Less than 100,000. And when you add in protocols such as, why not have a referral fee where people who introduce new people to Lazaris make 15% for the lifetime of that relationship in a dynamic, whereas a media distribution company, 90% of it is sheer profit when you sell an extra digital piece of media. So even if you gave 50% referral fees for life, you'd be making money hands over fist as a media company. Could we then pay our staff better? Could we then have an app? Could we then hire some psychologists to deal with the shame? Could we then hire enough staff that when people call up frustrated and confused because they're not used to channeled material, that someone with competency and attention does not shame them, but actually knows how to listen? Could we do that? Well, it's worth a shot. I'm willing to weigh in and participate. I've got these ideas. I can design an app. Do we care enough about the relationship with Lazaris, the clients, the community, the possibility field, to respond? Do we respond out of fear? Oh my gosh, we don't want Jach to punish us for siding with someone who reveals his shadow. Oh, we don't want that. Well, Lazaris material is not correlated with adulthood in any particular statistical way that I've noticed. So maybe we measure that as well. So what I've done, so that's kind of, I think, a good statistical thing, but that takes cooperation, meaning the community has to face its shadow and concept synergy shadow. If they want to keep concept synergy up on a pedestal, they can't do this because it's not. If they want to keep Lazaris friends on a pedestal, they can't do it because they're not. If they want to keep Lazaris on a pedestal, it doesn't seem like he's coming out particularly sweet-smelling in the allowing and creating all of this together. It's not a terribly friendly dynamic. Could Lazaris have made a mistake? Heaven forbid. You can't. No one comes out on a pedestal on this. Nor does anyone come out particularly horrible. This is human crap in a sociopathic, chauvinistic paradigm that we're born into and dealing with. But is this a map to at least become conscious of it? Be aware of it? Why not? So I disengage because sensitive, traumatized, shame-based people that see all this craziness don't like conflict. So first, this is over here, what we've just listened to is, I think, a good protocol. And this is my protocol, because I don't get to have any of you respond in any way that I want or desire or anything like that. You have your freedom and choice, and I have mine. And so my first was just to disengage and say, wow, that's really fucked up, and there's no one to talk to about it because no one associated with Lazaris wants to deal with the fuck-up side. No one. So it's just crazy making, so let's just avoid it. Then I raised concerns directly I raised concerns about the media and the dysfunctional website when that was crashing and stuff to Concept Synergy. They completely stonewalled that. I then raised concerns to Jach directly. He stonewalled that. He had no time for intimate friends, apparently. And because that's how we're going to redefine angry customers as intimate friends. And then, since we don't have time for intimate friends, because if I said I don't have time for angry customers, I'm just the leader of my own company, that might sound weird. Which business people do have time for angry customers that they piss off through incompetence? Not Jach Pursel. So that was rejected. Then it's very humiliating. At least I felt humiliated trying to bring this stuff up, knowing that the shame protocol at Concept Synergy was such that the more I talked, the more invisible I would feel. Because that's their commitment, is to not dealing with things. So that created a problem. So how to solve that problem and still be heard? Okay, so then we go into public media. Because when someone in a power structure abuses you and treats you like shit, privately, and they're in the high power ranking, you end up carrying the shame, statistically speaking. But if that exact same abusive behavior occurs in public, the leader is recognized accurately as being incompetent and shaming. And so the leader then, so you're the channel of Lazaris and you can't deal with angry customers of your own company. Oh, interesting. And you all worked with Lazaris for decades and talk with him from time to time, and none of you can deal with any of this? Interesting. Well, Google does it over here. Safeway does it over here. Do you need a hand? Oh, you're too shame-based to allow help. Oh, I see. Interesting. And so that puts the incompetence back where it belongs. You don't know how to run a company. You don't know how to run relationships. But you sell grandiose material channeled from the creator of universes. Interesting. So that solves some of that. It also solves the problem that, I don't like to think of other Lazaris friends dealing with their frustrations around this alone. and wondering what's wrong with them because they haven't read enough psychology to understand that the reason they feel bad is because they're being shamed by Jach Pursel and concept synergy around material that may not be working for them. And they're just left hanging, being told this is the best there will ever be in the history of humanity. Well, it's a perfect recipe for exactly what you're feeling. So how do you get through that? Well, you got to talk it through. How do you do that in a cult that won't listen? Well, you can talk it through in imagination. You can talk it through on YouTube. You can talk it through. I learned through talking. So that was kind of the solving of that problem. Then I sent the videos and requests and did breakdowns, etc., because Concept Synergy cut me off from Lazaris by sending me an abuse contract that said, you know, basically this typical thing an abusive parent would say, we're responsible for nothing. We don't abide by our own rules. We act arbitrarily. We'll cut you off from your spiritual friend if you don't say what we want you to say. I mean, the typical abuse contract by any abusive parent or government. Your friendly Concept Synergy. We won't listen to you, but we will dominate you. So there you have another elevated urgency to deal with this, because I understand, of course, that any one of Lazaris's friends are being bullied in the same exact way. So how do you respond to that? Well, things like this, buying domains, publishing it, let's call a spade a spade. If this is what synergy is, and this is what Lazaris means by synergy, great, everyone can know to avoid it. Let's all avoid synergy, because finally Lazaris has outlined what it actually is, and it's horrible. So get rid of it. Run for your lives. Anytime you see synergy in a company name, get lost. So I wrote to Jach again. Of course, he blew me off again. That's Jach's protocol of shame and denial. So then I'm suggesting this protocol. Well, this is partly educational. A social scientist, a psychologist, a competent communicator could deal with all of this and have a positive outcome. Meaning, if there was a head of Concept Synergy that was a competent psychologist, a competent social worker, a competent trauma therapist, a competent psychotherapist, a marriage and family counselor, just a healthy, competent human being, they could take notes on this. They could engage with me and make me feel heard and happier and welcome. They could do that quite easily in less than 5 minutes. And they could take 20 different notes, and they could gather a team of experts together, and they could act on 70% or more of these ideas with very little cost and high yields. That's what a competent person could do if they were competent. That's not saying that anyone associated with Lazaris will do that or can do that. I'm just saying a competent person who has never heard of Lazaris could do that and know exactly what they were doing, and I would know what they were doing as well. And good leaders with way less easy opportunity than this have done that with me many times. Unfortunately, none of them have much to do with Lazaris. But they study business, they study psychology, they study win-win. None of my wins are a lose for anyone. If you think that having a staff that used to work with Concept Synergy that's happy and feels honored at the end of it is a loss for you, you don't understand yourself. If you think a 10x app is bad for business, you're too incompetent to know you're incompetent. Well, that's fine at Concept Synergy, but it's not fine in many healthy competitive businesses that don't have the monopoly sanctioned by Lazaris. There's nothing that I want that is not a win for Jach Pursel, for Lazaris, for Concept Synergy, every client past, present, and future. It's a win for everyone. Excellence doesn't hurt people. It moves things forward. It creates constructive maps rather than negative maps. Now, if you grasp that all these are good ideas, but you don't know how to do them, and X number of years with Lazaris hasn't taught you how to do them, can you ask for help? Or are you still too shame-based for that? Well, if you're too shame-based, don't shame yourself. Grasp that X number of years with Lazaris has not lifted the shame. Well, can anyone else? Are you willing to try? What do you need to try? How about MDMA? How about EMDR? How about family constellation therapy? How about a shamanic journey to Peru? How about a sharing circle of venting everything that's hard to say and then being hugged? You tried those things? You won't find them at Lazaris, but they work for certain people in certain situations. Which, of course, brings to one of the problems, which is the self-referential nature of many of the core Lazaris people that don't want to try other things. But these are available. So, anyway, putting all this out here is a step. It lifts some of the crazy-making parts. Now, a shame-based company that's incompetent or can't respond may not respond to this either. This may be dead in the water. So what's next? Well, one of the traumatized and abused former staff members of Concept Synergy, Bill Brown, has, having ignored his family systematically because he was promised spiritual family by Michael and Penny back in the day when he took a pay cut from the post office to go be spiritual and be spiritual family with Concept Synergy. Well, having ignored his family, his blood family, for more than 20 or 30 years, when he got sick, Allison called up his family and dumped him sick back in his family's lap, so that his family could take care of him, so that Jach Pursel didn't have to pay any retirement benefits for someone who may have been driven crazy by this kind of cruelty and stupidity. Well, his family did actually take care of him. His sister looked out for him, dug into her own salary. His parents just left him a small fortune, which is kind of nice of them to do, despite being dissed by Concept Synergy and Bill Brown as not being good enough for spiritual family. They were just family. Well, anyway, he's obviously not thrilled at the fact that Barbara Brennan goes in and out of partial homelessness, that Terry Clancy doesn't know if he's going to make it and be able to take care of his lover. And doesn't like the fact that clients like myself are being bullied into abuse contracts. So the next thing is a court case to sue for what? A little bit of integrity and decency for the staff and the clients. Now, that may or may not be successful. You have the court of law, and then you also have the court of public opinion. So what's the next step? A documentary in which anyone associated, past, present, or future, in or out of Concept Synergy now or in the future, can talk and document what's actually going on around Lazaris, around Concept Synergy, around former and current staff, and around the court case. So what next? Well, keep the sites active so that there is a safe kind of pressure release valve and transparency. I'm not going to build an app single-handedly for a community that doesn't want it, and a company that won't deal with its ability and willingness to respond to any of this. If you're not willing to have competency for whatever reason, and being associated with Lazaris doesn't make you feel worthy enough to be treated well, then fine. But I will post, if future concept synergy people want to leave or other people come up, I will post exactly what I hear, unabridged and unedited, so that there's a little bit of data, so that maybe if at some point there is a leadership body at Concept Synergy, when Jach's dead maybe someone will come in and actually say, you know what, let's redesign all Concept Synergy from scratch. Let's translate Lazaris into 20 languages. Let's create real abundance here. Let's do this, let's do that. Let's do it, and let's measure it, and let's succeed, and let's confront our failures directly and honestly and get feedback, and we're not going to control any communication. We're welcoming it all, and we're living life. How about that? Well, this could be useful data for them because it's the perfect data that I would want if I was running a company and hurting people and didn't know what to do about it. Well, now you have a little bit of knowledge what to do about it, Jach, if you want to respond. Because this data is not your enemy. Control, shame, fear-based beliefs, hopelessness, I'm not even going to give it a shot, unwillingness to ask for help from people who know how to run a company 10 times better than you, that's your enemy. And it doesn't need to be. Even if you focus on finding someone who knows how to run a company 10 times better than you, by data, how well have you treated your clients? Let's see the data. How well what's your plan here? Could we vote with all our clients? What's your process of making sure that everyone feels seen? Ask the right questions. That map will work. If you're willing to face the shadow that is revealed, which is what? We don't work here, 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 and here. We're inadequate over here, here, and here, and here. But we can do something about it if we're willing and able to respond.